The moment you buy your Grail watch, something very strange can happen. You'd think the expensive watch would replace everything else, that the cheaper watches, the homages, the impulse purchases would quietly disappear into the watch box, never to be worn again. But for some collectors, the exact opposite happens, because recently I was having a chat with a watch friend, not about movements, not about specifications, not about finishing quality, but about two watches that probably shouldn't coexist in the same collection. A Rolex Explorer II and a Pagani Design Explorer II homage. And somewhere inside his story, I think he accidentally explained one of the most fascinating pieces of watch psychology I have ever come across. Welcome back to Horological. Now, before we go any further, this isn't going to become another Rolex versus homage debate. We've all seen those videos. Rolex is better, Pagani is better value, homages are wrong, homages democratise design, round and round we go. But that's not what interested me, because what this friend described wasn't really about watches. It was about us. He told me that he originally bought the Pagani Design Explorer II for a very practical reason. He wanted to see whether he actually liked the Explorer II on his wrist before spending some serious cash on the real thing, which on paper makes perfect sense. Try the design, live with it, see whether the proportions suit you, see whether the bezel works aesthetically, see whether the dial speaks to you. Then if you still want it, buy the Rolex and it takes over. Simple. Except that's not what happened, because after buying the Rolex, he expected the Pagani to become redundant. He assumed it would become one of the first watches he would sell. Instead, he couldn't let it go. And that immediately made me stop, because why, if the Rolex had fulfilled the dream, why keep the substitute? The answer is remarkably revealing. This friend and channel subscriber told me that the Pagani gradually became something completely different. It metamorphosised, if you will. It became his mountain biking watch, his gardening watch, his walking in the hills watch. If he ever found himself crawling through a damp cave, he would wear the Pagani, not because the Rolex couldn't do it. An Explorer II would probably cope perfectly well, but because value changes behaviour. The purchase price, the scarcity, the difficulty of replacing it at retail quietly transforms the object, not physically, but psychologically. The Rolex becomes precious, the Pagani becomes liberating, and suddenly the two watches stop competing directly with each other. They simply perform different jobs. And that fascinated me, because collectors often talk about tool watches, dive watches, pilot's watches, explorer's watches, but perhaps the real tool isn't the watch. It's the emotional role that we as collectors assign to it. Then he told me something else, something I suspect that many collectors have done. He created a spreadsheet, every single watch listed, purchase price, wear count, cost per wear, rotation schedule, everything carefully measured. At first it sounds wonderfully organised, almost scientific, until it isn't, because somewhere along the line the spreadsheet stopped serving the collection and the collection started serving the spreadsheet. Cost per wear became a target, wear counts became something to level up. Certain watches needed wearing simply because the numbers said they should. And suddenly what had started as a hobby began feeling suspiciously like administration. Eventually he abandoned it, returning instead to what he called a more organic, emotional-based system. And I absolutely love that phase, because isn't that what watch collecting is supposed to be? Not optimisation, not efficiency, not spreadsheets. Emotion. Sometimes a photograph appears online, a shaft of sunlight catches a dial, A memory returns. The next morning, that's the watch you're going to wear. No planning, no algorithm, no justification, just instinct. We will explore spreadsheets a bit more in a future episode, so if you like this kind of content, you know what to do. Then my friend said something else that really made me smile. He wondered how other collectors rotate their watches. Some seem to have a flavour of the week. Others wear the same watch for months on end before changing. Some build strict rotations. Others simply reach into the watch box and see what comes out. There isn't really a correct answer because every collection slowly develops its own rhythm, its own personality, its own logic, or perhaps, as in my case, its own lack of logic. Then came the observation that really stopped me hard in my tracks, because it also pointed out something that many collectors quietly forget. Most people don't notice what watch you're wearing. His friends know that he owns a Rolex Explorer II. When he wears the Pagani, they simply assume it's the Rolex. Nobody studies it. Nobody asks questions. Nobody notices. And he's probably right. As collectors, we spend hours discussing lug profiles, bezel fonts, hand lengths, dial textures, bracelet taper, while the overwhelming majority of people never look beyond nice watch. It's strangely liberating when you realise that, because suddenly the watch stops being about everybody else. It becomes something much more personal. And perhaps that's exactly where the hobby becomes healthiest. Finally, Andy described something I'd never fully considered before. Owning the Rolex didn't diminish the Pagani. It actually gave it permission to become its own thing. He no longer wore it pretending it was a Rolex. He wore it because it was an excellent watch for a fraction of the price. Not a fake, not an imitation, not a disappointment, simply a different experience. I've got one of those situations in my own collection myself. And that distinction matters because whether you personally love homage or dislike them entirely, there's something genuinely interesting happening here. The relationship changed. The Pagani stopped trying to become something else. It became the watch he genuinely wanted to wear in certain situations, and perhaps that's something many collectors experience without ever quite putting it into words. It's a very hard thing to articulate properly. Maybe every watch in our collection doesn't need to compete for first place. Maybe they just simply need to occupy different emotional spaces. One accompanies us on adventures, one reminds us of an achievement, one carries memories. One survives hard use, a total beater. One satisfies curiosity, another fulfills perhaps a lifelong dream. The mistake is assuming that they all have to justify themselves using the exact same criteria and metrics. Andy finished by saying something wonderfully simple. He gets joy from all of them. And maybe that's the entire point, because somewhere along the way, many of us start believing that collecting is about optimisation, the best movement, the best specification, the best value, the best investment, the perfect rotation, the perfect collection. But perhaps it isn't. Perhaps it's simply just about finding the right watch for the right moment, for the right version of yourself. The mountain biker, the gardener, the traveller, the dreamer, the Grail owner, not competing identities, just different chapters, but still in the same book. And perhaps that's why the Pagani Design Explorer II and the Rolex Explorer II can coexist so comfortably in the same collection. Not because one replaces the other, but because they eventually stop competing. They simply become different tools for different moments in the same collector's life. And I have to admit, I think that's one of the healthiest relationships with watch collecting I've ever heard described. And remember, watch collecting isn't logical, but it is horological.
Bye.